And good morning. My name is Ryan Belmore, and I'm the publisher of ALXnow. And today we are going to be chatting with Alexandria Mayor Alyia Gaskins. What I thought we would do first today, though, is kick off with her council report that she provides. And this one was for August, and I think it's a good start to our conversation today.
This is my council report, where I share important updates and actions from the past month. This report will focus on highlights from summer 2025. Despite the summer recess, the work of serving our community never stops. And this summer brought significant challenges, from ICE raids to threats against our transgender youth. It has been a difficult season, but we continue to fight for a stronger, more inclusive Alexandria. Council has spent the summer preparing for upcoming budget deliberations by planning for potential funding risk. Alexandria receives more than $50 million in direct federal funding, most of which supports our Department of Community and Human Services. By planning now, we can be proactive in protecting critical programs. We are also closely monitoring the impacts of federal actions in D.C. Our homeless services team remains engaged daily and is preparing to add evening and weekend coverage if needed. In July, I was accepted to the Bloomberg-Harvard City Leadership Initiative, along with 47 mayors from around the world. Each mayor must focus on a project, and my project will focus on retaining and empowering local talent to power City Hall and ensure Alexandria stays resilient through change. This summer, I've also been listening carefully to residents and businesses about the Waterfront Flood Mitigation Project. I've had multiple meetings, walks, and site visits about this project, and I take these conversations seriously and am working with staff to weigh every option on how we move forward. This summer was also filled with many community events, new business openings, and, of course, proclamations. Looking ahead to the fall, City Services will begin relocating in August as we prepare for major renovations to City Hall and Market Square. Also, our new short-term rental ordinance will take effect on September 1st, addressing common concerns like noise, trash, and parking, while giving property owners flexibility. When Council returns on September 9th, we will tackle small business funding, procurement reforms, and the future of the 200 block of King Street. I've also asked the city manager to provide monthly updates on the state of our economy to keep us informed as we move forward in preparing the budget. Join me for our next resident roundtable on September 20th, which is an opportunity to share your ideas and concerns for some of the issues ahead. Also, if you are or you know someone age 14 to 18, I encourage you to join our next Mayoral Youth Forum on September 27th. I thank you for watching my council report. This one has been an interesting one as my kids are here recording with me as well. Together, we can build a city that works for everyone. Onward to October.
And that was Mayor Alyia Gaskins' August council report, and we will have her join us here in just a second. Please stand by. And here we go. Mayor Alyia Gaskins joins us. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry I'm running late. It has been
okay, and we are
a
live
day
now.
Of meetings already.
Well, what we did was we took a moment and I ran your August mayor's update. So everybody was just able to watch your 3-minute video as well as the outtakes of your August update. And there's a lot in that message.
Yes, there's a lot happening. And I think it's important for people to know that while it seems like we've been on summer recess, there's still so much work going on. And we're continuing to figure out how we prepare and position our city to respond to a lot of the emerging threats and issues that we're navigating. And I would just say I do this monthly. So if anyone wants to sign up, you can sign up on my website. And my commitment to the public is you receive no campaign related stuff. As part of this. This is strictly about what is the council doing, what is the council thinking about, and where are we headed as a city.
Yeah, this one worked out well because it came out today, and we were chatting today, so it was a good opportunity to run that ahead of time to provide some background, and I'll be sure to include it in our recap of our conversation. Of all the things you talked about, there is a lot going on. Whether it's the Title IX or the National Science Foundation or ICE. Where do you want to start there today? I feel like, do you have any other updates further than what you provided in your monthly update or recap?
Not that I can think of, but we can go through that list, or we can add others, depending on what's on the community's mind.
Yeah, we'll dive right in because I know you were on a tight schedule today. And what I wanted to do was, you mentioned summer recess. It certainly was not a summer recess, but council is back September 9th, which is next week. What is top of the agenda, or what is top of mind as you come off of this non-recess?
Yep. So there's a couple things. So first and foremost, on September 9th, we're going to start with some general updates to kind of touch base on some key issues that we want the public to be aware of, but also are critical as we make decisions moving forward. One is we're going to be asking the city manager at the first legislative meeting to put a state of the economy together to help us understand what are the pressures that we are facing as a city. What does that mean for our upcoming budget deliberations? How are we starting to see the impacts of the cuts to the federal workforce? What are we starting to see as it relates to tariffs and other implications for our community? So that'll be one thing. We have also extended an invitation to Dominion Energy. We wanted to bring them in and their representatives. So we're still trying to confirm the time, but we thought that it was important, given some of the summer storms that we faced, for us to get an update from them on sort of their response to the storms that we face, but more importantly, what they're doing to make the infrastructure that we all depend on more resilient. There are a lot of places that faced outages for longer than I think we're used to, and a lot of places that faced outages in repeated areas. And so how are we using the data? How are we understanding what we saw from these past storms to make it better for our residents, and to make sure that we are holding Dominion accountable in providing the best service? The other things that we're going to be looking at in that first meeting, we have some funding for small businesses. We're looking at some changes to our procurement policies. We're going to have a discussion about the future of the 200 block and whether or not that should remain closed. And so we're going to review the community and business feedback. So those are some of the main things that we'll be diving into right when we get started. And before that, if anyone's interested, we have our partnership with Senior Services, where we do our centenarian celebration. And I think there are 5 or 6 individuals in our community that we will be wishing a happy birthday to and celebrating their 100th birthdays.
That is great. Tim asks a question, and I think it ties into what we've already talked about with the federal government pulling back on funding, whether it be schools, healthcare, food assistance, you name it. How can we as a city continue to provide these important services for our residents who need them? What actionable steps can our council take in the next term to address these funding shortfalls?
So a couple things. One, I mentioned this in my monthly update, but one of the things that the council is doing right now is what we're calling scenario planning. At the end of the day, we can't prepare for these impacts if we're not aware of the full breadth and scope of the different programs that are going to be impacted. And so right now, we are working particularly on the city side with all of our departments that receive federal funding, whether that's the Department of Community and Human Services, all the way to our police department and our traffic signals, our environmental planning, trying to get a sense of what do they receive, how much do they receive, What are the grants being used for and for how long? So for example, is this multi-year funding or is this a short-term funding? And then from there, we're trying to map out how many residents are impacted by a particular program. So there might be a program in the Department of Community and Human Services that impacts maybe 10 people, but those are 10 people who are very special, very critical, complex, high needs. There may be another program that impacts 1,000 people. And so trying to understand like who's being impacted and how, and then how do we map out criteria for what it would take in order to continue to serve those people? Because there may be programs where we can't serve everyone at the same capacity in order to keep that program. There may be other programs that do similar things that maybe now is the time where we need to combine them or think differently about them in order to continue the service, but to continue that service differently. So that's one place, just like getting a scope, a lay of the land. The other thing that we are looking at is we're starting to have a lot of conversations with our state delegation, helping them understand that as we put together our legislative package, this is what we're seeing in terms of real impacts on SNAP, real impacts on Medicaid. Here's the cost to the city that we're expecting. Here's what this looks like, so that hopefully we can advocate for some additional state resources to help close the gap. And then once we hit next spring, I think we'll have to have a real conversation as a city about kind of our current tax rate and the resources that we have, what things we might need to cut that we just can't avoid making the cut, and what other things we might need to think differently about how we invest in moving forward.
To follow up on Tim's question, I wonder, he asked, what can city council do? I'm wondering if, one of the things city council can do is remind residents what they can do to support some of these programs. And just while you were talking, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to remind, some of the programs that are helping those who are in need, who might be facing some of those cuts. If we, just a general reminder, some residents who've been here for a while may know about all of the nonprofits or all of the organizations who need the funding, but some of us new folks, hand raised here, might need a reminder of, hey, if you have an extra couple dollars or time or resources, here's where it can go to help us fill the gap.
I think that is important. I think it's one of those both and situations. So I think, yes, absolutely. If you have resources, whether that's your time, your talent, or your treasure available to help, there are amazing nonprofits like Alive and Carpenter Shelter, some of our faith-based organizations and other partners that are on the front lines of seeing people every day and helping to provide them with food and shelter, in neighborhood health and others, and making sure that folks have access to quality healthcare. On the other hand, I think it's important to realize that the scale of some of these programs and the resources that people receive in our community, we will not be able to fill the gap with just philanthropic and charity resources alone. If I think about SNAP and the more than 14,000 residents who depend on that, the impact I think DCHS had put out was that's over $20 million in impact. So yes, if you're able to give, please give. But I think we also need to realize that there will continue to be a government role and there will continue to be an impact on the government and our ability to provide those services. And we're going to have to figure out how to make up that gap in other ways.
Speaking of programs, I'm going to ask Tom's question in a little bit wider of a breadth, but he mentions that the Alexandria Police Department is a customer of Flock, an AI surveillance company that's been known, according to him, to be issued illicitly by ICE to track immigrants, and goes on and wonders, will the city reconsider using that program? With everything that's going on, how close is the city manager or city council looking at all the programs to see if they're helping or hurting during this time?
So I guess let me take it in two ways. So there's the broader brush that we talked about of kind of our overall programs. And then there's the second piece, which I think Tom's question speaks to deliberately, which is how closely are we working with or not working with ICE? And how are we making sure that our programs, our services, the things that we're doing are not negatively impacting our immigrant community? Specifically to the question about flock cameras, Tom, I don't have an answer for you right now. I got this question on Friday through 311, and I have reached out and asked the chief and our police liaison for a recommendation and to understand kind of what we are doing or not doing. I think you have a council that has made it very clear that we believe that the actions that ICE is taking in this community, that they are wrong, that they deny people their due process, their civil liberties, and their constitutional rights, that they don't respect the very dignity and the humanity of our residents in our community. And so we are looking at, and we have directed the city manager to be looking at every program, everything that we're doing to make sure that we are true to our values of being a welcoming community. And we're not doing things that share data in ways that they shouldn't do or place residents in harm's way unnecessarily.
And I guess I'll follow up with just some of our reporting is, we have reached out to Alexandria Police Department several times, the Sheriff's Office several times. Pretty much they have told us that, they are not aware when ICE is in the community. And they are not cooperating with them. For the sheriff's office, they're the only thing they're cooperating is following the law that they have to follow. Otherwise, neither one have commented or known about any of the activity that is going on. So I just wanted to put that out there from our point of view is what we've heard when we put in press inquiries to both departments. So in case people were wondering some background on that. We have a lot of questions on infrastructure, and maybe as we go through these, you can remind people, see how many times you could say 311 today, of where they should go to for some of these things. Let me get back here. Somebody had, Alex had some questions about ADA accessibility in the city. Each day I've been learning of more and more buildings that are not ADA accessible. I get it, they're old buildings, but what can we do to make them more accessible for wheelchair users and sensory friendly, especially in light of, and then there's some political speak about things happening in Washington, D.C. But, is there, it's a good question because I think this is the first time it's come up in this form. If somebody sees something that's not ADA accessible, is that a 311 or is that a different office?
So I would say go ahead and reach out to 311 and let us know the buildings that you see. I think the reason why I recommend 311 is what happens is on the back end, we have somebody who screens and is able to then make sure it gets to the right department versus you sending it to a department and maybe you're sending it to one staff person, but they're not the right staff person who deals with that issue. This will make sure that all of the departments who deal with the issue are able to have visibility. The second thing is it allows us to track. I know there have been times when people have said, oh, I submitted a 311 and I didn't get the response I wanted, or we're not seeing things happen. This then allows us to go back and hold ourselves accountable because then we can see, okay, actually there was a response, but you're right, that's not the response that should have happened. Or something did happen and it's going to be implemented on this day and we can actually get a concrete resolution to you. And if we didn't get a resolution, we can then go back and make sure we're putting in processes to fix it moving forward. Something I would say is just a win that I'm excited about is the council does share your commitment to making sure that all, especially our city spaces, are ADA accessible. One of the great things about the new Market Square and City Hall renovation is right now, if you are in a wheelchair or you're pushing a stroller or you broke your leg and you're on a scooter, there's only one entrance that you can use to get into City Hall. You have to go all the way back around to Cameron Street. You can't access it from Royal or King Street because of the stairs that come up here. And so the new Market Square is actually we're going to, I think, raise the sidewalks so that it is flat so that our building can be accessed by anyone from any point of the building. I think that's really important. If we're creating the People's Hall, then all persons should be able to get in and come in and do their business the way they need to. The other thing is, as we think about the redesign of our chambers, right now, they are also not super accessible. If you wanted to come and speak about an issue, it can be very difficult to get a wheelchair to the front of the room, to access the speaker platform, to adjust the mic. All of that will be changed and adjusted. And we've been working with groups like the National Federation for the Blind and other other communities to have them weigh in on the design to make sure that it's not only accessible, that there are sensory rooms, that we're thinking about everything from the lighting to the spacing to the sound, so that it is a more inclusive space.
I know I joke because we mentioned 311 so much, but I want to give a little testimony. As I recently used it for a sidewalk that just water was flowing underneath it and it was starting to fail, and reported it and got a great response on it. And then a tree went down across my road. I knew somebody had already called the non-emergency number, but I said, well, let me put it in 311 as well. So I started putting it in. Said, is it blocking the road? Give me specific actions. Nope, don't report it here. Call the non-police number. And it was good how it just kind of walked through the systems, and it, both items were fixed quite fast. And no, nobody knows in the app who I am or who you are that's reporting it. So it was great. The police came out and checked it out, and as well as the city arborists. So good use of the app in both cases. So I just want to give it a little shout. I'm also a customer. So
glad to hear that. And I want people to know, like, there are great success stories like you're having. There are also times when I'm serious, like, we are committed to being a government that is learning and improving. So we had a situation a couple weeks ago. Somebody wanted to report that they saw a dead bird on the sidewalk and they wanted the bird removed. I guess there was no option necessarily besides clicking that, like, there was damage to the sidewalk. And so they received a response back from 311 saying that we would be out, and I think something like 12 weeks to fix the damage. Now, if you're trying to get a bird removed, that is very different than if you are trying to get a full sidewalk replaced. And so now we are looking at, like, what are the options that need to be in there so people can accurately report what they see, and we can give a response that's not responding to sidewalk damage, but is responding to the issue and the concern that you have. And so we're working on that in every part of the process.
do you know how many requests a day 311 gets? Or a year?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I should know. We get a weekly report of every 311. Council also is part of that. What we have asked them to do is segment, like, what are the issues we're getting the most questions on this week? Where are there parts of the city that we're seeing the greatest impact? So right now, I think last week, the most frequent 311s were about the proposed waterfront flood mitigation project. And so we're able to track that and see what's going on in the conversation within our community.
We have several people just looking for updates, and I don't expect you to have the answers today because I did not provide you with any of these beforehand, but they're mostly street construction projects. And maybe what we can do with this time and with these questions is point people into where maybe possibly they can get updates. Richard says the Rosemont neighborhood has had almost weekly street interruptions in construction for months from the water utilities. When will this end? Why hasn't there been communication to residents? While you jot that one down, let me see. Yeah, we'll start with that one. If people have, I think there's another one in here about construction on their streets, as well as, when the utility company is done, the street isn't put back into perfect place or repaved or, is that 311, or is there somewhere on the website where the people can see the schedules and timelines of these projects?
So what I would say is, if you have a specific street question, go ahead and put it in 311. Let us know your street. Somebody actually just did this last week, and our Transportation and Environmental Services Department, they responded right away, and they were able to say, like, here's the work that is being done, but also something that they were able to respond is, here's why there was a delay, or here's where the communication broke down. So you can see on the website, you can see, you can go on our website and you can find out the paving schedule, you can find out about utility work. But I think when you put it in a specific 311, we're able to give you more context. I think a couple things that we are learning is, one, the communication breakdown between some of the utility companies and what they're communicating to residents versus what we've communicated. So we may have communicated the schedule that we agreed to and are expecting, and then they ran into something when they got into the work, or there was some sort of delay or complication that has pushed back the project. And so we have been meeting internally, our Department of Project Implementation, our Transportation Environmental Services, and the city manager, to figure out, A, what do we need to do to better communicate to residents when there's there's been an issue that has impacted this project, but B, what do we need to do to further hold our utility partners accountable to the standards that we have set? There are rules and there are processes for the way that they are supposed to return the street back. There are rules and there are requirements for the way that they're supposed to notice and communicate with residents. And so if that's not happening, that's also more reason for you to let us know, because then we have a job to do to make sure that it does happen correctly moving forward.
And I was going to follow up and ask you, is there a rule about notification of residents? Should people, if something is going to be happening on the street, should most residents expect to get something in the mail or a knock at the door?
There is a rule around noticing. I would have to get back to you on specifically the format in which it happens.
I will look that up. I can probably find it as well, and I'll be sure to link to it for people. There's a couple speed questions. Why was the speed limit on Eisenhower set at 25 miles per hour all the way from Van Dorn to Mill? 4-lane road, too slow. And then we have another one in here as well about traffic issues on Holland Ave, Eisenhower, St. John, Carlisle Street. Needs more traffic lights. So one person wants speed bumped up, another wants more traffic lights. Where should people be paying attention? How can people make their, is it the Traffic Advisory Commission? How can people make this known?
Yeah. Well, I think what comes through in your question is this is the thing that happens on every single issue we face as a community. We're a diverse community with a lot of different perspectives on how we should plan and grow and move in the city. So for every person who wants something, there's usually a person who disagrees that that's the right approach. And so staff, council, and the conversations we have with community are often trying to figure out how do you take all those inputs and ultimately chart a path forward. When it comes to sort of the larger thing that people should be paying attention to and how the speed limits on Eisenhower and other streets have been impacted, previous councils and then this council has continued a commitment to Vision Zero and making sure that we have a goal of 0 traffic fatalities within our streets. As part of that, we have said that in order to have safe streets, there are different interventions or things that we might need to do to our streets in order to make them safer. Whether you are driving on that street, whether you are walking on that street, biking, scooting, however you move throughout our city. And so some of that may be enforcement, so enforcing a speed limit, because we know the impact to a pedestrian if you're crossing that street and you get hit by somebody going 45 miles an hour is much different than if you get hit by somebody going 20 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour. So there are enforcement related pieces to that. There are engineering related pieces. So when you see protected bike lanes, when you see maybe changes to road patterns, when you see traffic calming, ways to design the road so that it makes it safer for people to navigate those roads. There are also education pieces. We know that there's education for every user of that road in terms of the speed limit and the ways in which they navigate. So if you are interested in how these changes are coming about, if you're interested in why certain roads are being proposed, I'd encourage you to go on our website. You can often see the studies that were done around the near misses that occurred, the traffic impacts, the pedestrian risk. You can see kind of the data that was used to make those decisions. You can also get a sense of how these roads connect to other roads and what types of development or projects are being planned around. So sometimes we'll get emails and people say, well, nobody lives here. Well, there might be a project that's coming and people are about to live there. And so we're planning and thinking about how we build the infrastructure for the whole community as it goes. So I would say go there. To Ryan's other part of his question about how can you engage, I'd say engage with the Alexandria Transportation Commission. So they just a couple years ago finished updating the Alexandria Mobility Plan, in which a lot of these streets were proposed and a lot of these questions were reviewed and discussed. You could also attend traffic and parking board meetings. You can also attend our public hearings, so our Saturday public hearings. You can attend virtually, you can attend in person, or you can send a letter letting the council know about your opinions on these issues. So those are just a couple ways off the top of my head that you can weigh in on some of these proposed changes.
Let's see here. Marcia brings up the torpedo factory, something that hasn't come up in the last couple of chats. She is wondering if there are any physical improvements, restrooms, lighting, signage on roadways, Riverview entrance in the upcoming year. Is it, any changes or anything new and exciting coming up in 2025, 2026 for the Torpedo Factory off the top of your head?
You know, Marcia, I will have to apologize to you because that is not a question. That's not one that I know off the top of my head. What I do know is that most of the past year conversations have focused on kind of re-upping and getting the governance structure in place that community stakeholders and artists kind of agreed upon for the path moving forward. I also know that in our previous discussions, something that had been talked about was there are certain maintenance things that are just non-negotiable that have been put off for years and need to happen. What I don't have for you off the top of my head is that timeline. So what I can commit to is I know Ryan usually does a summary. I will put that on my to-do list today so that he has that information to put in the summary and that you have any updates on when scheduled maintenance is planned for.
Donna mentions the stairwell leading to and from track number 2 at Amtrak, mentioning that it was not in the best shape. You know, I think it's a good reminder of, you know, if people experience things with the Metro or Amtrak, where should they be going for each of those to let them know that things could improve?
Yep, send those to us. Send this to us as well. 301 is another great resource. I can tell you there was an incident over near the King Street Metro. Somebody sent in about a noise they were hearing. We immediately were able to get that over to Metro, and we have a contact in the general manager, but also all of his staff. They were able to get out. They noticed that something was loose that needed to be fixed. So when we receive it, whether it's Dash, Metro, Amtrak, VRE, let us know immediately, and then we're able to get it to the right people. And then what we do as part of our process is we have our staff follow up if there's work that needs to be done to make sure that the work was done correctly. But we also ask those entities to follow up directly with the residents as well. And oftentimes they will provide their personal contact so residents can then contact them directly or keep them updated as the situation unfolds.
A couple weeks ago, I covered your back to school little outing for the girls of Alexandria, and it was well received. It was an amazing event. I've gotten more comments and emails, and I need to put them all together and forward them to you because people want to know how to support more events like that. As well as support events for the boys in the community. You know, this was, for those, a quick recap, was an event that provided breakfast, backpacks, haircuts, hairstyling for those in our community. So just giving you a chance to shout from the rooftop of how people can see more of things like that happen.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you covering it. It's one of my favorite events of the year. I think just to see each young woman smile and the ability to go in and pick and choose what they want and how they want to show up for the first day and to be there with some of their classmates and get their backpacks and everything they need to be ready for school. It's one of those moments where it feels like time slows down and you just get to smile and have fun. And when I visited Jefferson, Houston on the first day of school with ACPS, I got to see several of my little girls and they were just so excited. And so it really does come full circle. I'd say in terms of how you find out about events like that or things like that, a couple different ways. I partnered in this case with ARHA, and they have a foundation, AVA Made, and they do things throughout the year, everything from making sure our kids have shoes to backpacks to coats in the winter to even toys. And so I would recommend working with them. Another great partner that I've worked with in the past for similar events would be Carpenter Shelter, and they do similar outreach and so forth. I'd say if you're looking for maybe a one-stop shop, I find that Volunteer Alexandria often keeps a list of different events and activities or nonprofits that might need support. So those are some great ways just to kind of stay constantly in the loop about ways that you can give back and support initiatives like that.
Excellent. One final question here before I turn it over to you. Jacob writes in, the federal government is rolling back emissions regulations for cars, EV rebate. Is the city, you know, I know this is all happening in real time and it changes from day to day, but will the city be stepping up to improve air quality? You know, is the city watching, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. Is the city watching every decision or thing that comes out like that and saying, what can we do?
So yes, city is watching. In this case, we have our Office of Climate Action. So Ryan Freed and his team, they are actually tracking a lot of the executive orders, bills, and comments that come out in this area. I'd say one upcoming meeting that this resident might be interested in is in September, and I will try and remember the date as we're talking. The council is going to be meeting with the dashboard, the Environmental Policy Commission, the Alexandria Transportation Commission, and several other partners in sustainability. We're going to have a joint work session that is going to be focused on kind of the current operations, maintenance, and infrastructure needs of Dash, particularly as it relates to the electrification of our fleet, and sort of what do we need to understand given sort of changes in, bus manufacturing, changes in electric infrastructure, and then also changes in the types of funding and grants that were previously available. So that's one very specific conversation I know that's coming on this issue that's going to be happening within the first 2 weeks of September.
Okay. Was there anything on your agenda that you wanted to get to today? I know you have a packed schedule today, so I wanted to make sure I gave you enough time.
Thank you. I guess the only a few other quick things. One, so as I mentioned, probably the number one 311 that we're getting right now is related to the waterfront flood mitigation project. Most people write in and they're specifically talking about the pump station. So the first thing I would encourage folks to do is visit our website so that you can learn about the full scope of the project, because it is everything from pipe replacement to the bulkheads on our shoreline. The pump station is one component of a larger project. I'd say the second thing for people to know is we have pushed back discussion. So initially the council was going to be discussing this in September. We're not going to be taking this up until November. I think the other thing that folks should know is continue to watch on the website. Just this week, I think by the end of the week, there are going to be new renderings that are going to be put up that we are listening. The process is working. So there's some new drawings that are going to be put forth around a smaller structure, reduce construction times, and potentially even looking at how we shrink the project area. So I would just say to people, there is no vote before the council right now. If you have questions or concerns, I encourage you to write in. I hope that you write in from a place of not everyone's trying to destroy our waterfront, because that's not what I wake up to do. And that's not what I think anyone on our council wants to do either. We recognize that our waterfront is symbolic and iconic of the very heart of our city. And so we're going to keep looking at this project. We're going to keep making adjustments, and we're going to keep taking your ideas and exploring alternatives so that we can make a decision that is right for the entire community. So that would just be the first. There's a lot more to come on that project. I think on our e-news this week, there's also going to be a list of more community engagement that'll be rolling out over the next several weeks. So I would encourage you to attend one of those meetings as well. So that's one. The other thing I would put on folks' radar is now is the time where we start working on our legislative package. So putting together our ask for Richmond. And so if you have comments, if you have ideas, there's a form on the website. You can just type in legislative package and you can send us those ideas. We try and collect all of those by September 30th. We will then put out a draft legislative package for the public to comment on in October. And then in November, our delegation will come to the council and they will receive a presentation on our priorities, and then also share back with us what are their priorities and which things from our package they might be championing. So I would encourage you, there's often things we cannot do in the city because of the Dillon rule. If there are issues from housing to transportation to clean air and clean water, like some of the questions we received already, please get us your ideas by September 30th. And then lastly, just a plug for a fun event. The annual Black Family Reunion will be this Saturday, the 6th. It starts at 11 and it starts with, I think, public safety story time. All are welcome. So if you just need a little joy in your life, some good food and good people, really encourage you to come, and you can find out more about that event and others on our website.
Excellent. I cannot believe how many times budget comes up and how budget came up in your, I'm like, didn't budget season just end? You get like 6 months off. That's it. Maybe.
You get no time off. I guess
Yeah.
our staff would tell you no time off on the budget. And two things I'm glad you brought that up. Two things we're doing differently this year with the budget is one, in September, we are going to have a work session just on the CIP. I think there were a lot of major projects that came up last year that honestly you can't discuss in a 1 hour session or a few week budget cycle. Things like a new middle school, things like our shelter capacity, and do we need an additional shelter or more permanent supportive housing? Things like a rec center on the West End, and parts of the West End that are underserved by arts and cultural uses. And so we're going to have a CIP work session where we're going to be solely focused on what do we need to do to improve the sustainability of our CIP, and how do we need to space out and think about projects over the next 10 years. So that'll be coming up in September. We will also be headed, myself, the city manager, and the finance team and I will be headed up to New York City this month to defend our bond rating and to present to the bonding agencies kind of our strategy for the future moving forward, and why Alexandria continues to be a AAA city and a good investment. So there'll be a lot of kind of budget and finance conversations happening in the month of September, all to prepare us for our retreat in November, and then for the manager's budget presentation in February.
A lot on the agenda.
Yes.
Is it in your household or in your mind, is it summer or fall right now?
I think it's fall. I guess it's fall. The
Okay.
leaves are already falling.
When does Halloween
in front
start
of
in
my
your
house.
household with two youngins?
Yes. Halloween will start when mom has a few minutes to figure out our costume and actually plan. So hopefully it's weeks in advance. Some years it's been the week of.
Okay, that's all right. I wasn't sure if you already put up the decorations yesterday on Labor Day. So.
No. The only holiday I start decorating really early for is Christmas. I get very excited about it.
Mayor, was there anything else? We have some follow-ups. We have some homework, and we'll get to it.
Yes, I did already see. I forgot to turn off my email, so there's been 2 311s that have came in while we're sitting here. So
okay, look at that. See, they're going right to you. So perfect. Yeah, I think that's all that we have today, and we'll keep an eye on for the city schedule. None of this stuff is top secret information. You can go on the City of Alexandria's website, and you can follow all of the events, all the agendas, all the dockets. That's what we do, and that's how we report it. And so I encourage everybody else to sign up. If you are really interested in everything that goes on in the city, sign up for the listserv and get every single email, every single agenda. You will never miss a thing. They do. The city, I've lived elsewhere, and Alexandria does a great job of sending press releases and agendas out to everybody. So, all right, Mayor.
All right. Well, thank you, and I hope everyone has a good rest of your Tuesday.
All right. I'll talk to you later. That is Mayor Alyia Gaskins. We thank her for joining us. She joins us every month here on ALX Now. And if you ever have a question you want to submit, ALXnow.com, you can watch, rewatch, share this conversation shortly. It will be available on ALXnow.com. Thanks for watching.